Turn it up!
To the moon.
Flying to the moon, dangerous like hell. Girls are brave and beautiful as well. Through the universe, looking for some fun. Girls like birds are flying up and down.
200 flying girls. 200 flying girls. I'm flying to the moon.
All of them are blonde, all of them are tall. They bring emancipation to the world.
All right, sorry about the delay, but we're back. Welcome back to another thrilling episode. I say thrilling today quite a bit. Of Storytime Saturdays. I am, as ever, your implacable, if not always impeccable, narrator, Fragath. And today we've got the actual finale and wrap up and conclusion of Robert A. Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. So, bucklist yon seat belts, because we're going to throw some rocks. Big rocks. One sec, I got a bunch of stuff here in my way because I've let my desk turn into a bit of a disaster area. I have been distracted for too long. Kerker. Well, I don't really have much of an intelligible or intelligent preamble here, but yeah. So what happened on the last reading? A lot happened, but mostly the Lunar Authority made an attack on the lunar colonies. Colonies, plural. Some of them are separate, if only by distance. And that didn't go very well for Lunar Authority. No siree, Bob. They got the shit kicked out of them. Uh, that isn't to say that the loonies didn't take quite a lot of deaths, probably like 2-to-1 death toll. But all the Lunar Authority people were vanquished, whereas the loonies still have many, many, many more bodies. And now Luna has said, nah, enough's enough. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and they are going to make good on their threat to chuck stuff at them. They've even gone so far as to tell people not to be in the places where they're chucking the rocks. Well, they're actually like mining capsules filled with lunar material, but we'll call them rocks for ease. Incidentally, if you want to watch an anime series that happens to utilize this idea, um, and also has giant robots, highly recommend checking out Metal Armor Dragonar. It is the Pepsi to Gundam's Coca-Cola, I guess, except nowhere near as large a franchise. It is the Uncola, or the store brand cola, but it's very, very good. It's probably my favorite Gundam series ever, even though it isn't actually Gundam. Uh, and the villains in that series, who are totally not like the Zabis, they're not actually. They don't have as much character for starters. Uh, their primary opening bid is not so much colony drops as it is chucking rocks from a lunar railgun uh, at Earth to declare independence. So, or hold them hostage, both. In any case, here we go. Chapter 26. We hit them so hard you could see it. By bare eyeball hookup. Didn't need binocs. Chin dropped and I said, Bоже moj, softly and reverently. 12 very bright, very sharp, very white lights in perfect rectangular array. They swelled, grew dimmer, dropped off towards red, taking what seemed a long, long time. Were other new lights, but that perfect grid so fascinated me I hardly noticed.
Yes, agreed Mike with smug satisfaction. Dead on. You can talk now, man. I'm not busy. Just the backups.
I'm speechless. Any fail to get through?
The Lake Michigan load was kicked up and sideways, did not disintegrate. It will land in Michigan. I have no control. It lost its transponder. The Long Island Sound one went straight to target. They tried to intercept and failed. I can't say why. Man, I can abort the follow-ups on that one, into the Atlantic and clear of shipping. Shall I? 11 seconds.
If you can miss shipping.
I said I could. It's done. But we should tell them we had backups and why we aborted. To make them think.
Maybe should not have aborted, Mike. Idea was to make them use up interceptors.
But the major idea was to let them know that we are not hitting them as hard as we can. We can prove the other. We can prove the other at Colorado Springs.
What happened there? Twisted neck and used binocs. Could see nothing but Ribbon City, 100+ kilometers long, Denver Pueblo municipal strip.
A bullseye. No interception. All my shots are bullseyes, man. I told you they would be. And this is fun. I'd like to do it every day. It's a word I never had a referent for before.
What word, Mike?
Orgasm. That's what it is when they all light up. Now I know.
That sobered me. Mike, don't get to liking it too much, because if it goes our way, won't do it a second time.
That's okay, man. I've stored it. I can play it over any time I want to experience it. But 3-1 we do it again tomorrow, and even money on the next day. Want to bet? An hour's discussion of jokes equated with 100 Kong dollars.
Where would you get $100? He chuckled.
Where do you think money comes from?
Forget it. You get that hour free. Shan't tempt you to affect chances.
I wouldn't cheat, man. Not you. We just hit their defense command again. You may not be able to see it. Dust cloud from first one. They get it every 20 minutes now. Come on down and talk. I've turned the job over to my idiot son.
He's safe?
I'm monitoring. Good practice for him, man. He may have to do it later by himself. He's accurate, just stupid. But he'll do what you tell him to.
You're calling that computer he. Can talk?
Oh, no, man. He's an idiot. He can never learn to talk. But he'll do whatever you program. I plan to let him handle quite a bit on Saturday.
Why Saturday?
Because Sunday he may have to handle everything. That's the day they slam us.
What do you mean? Mike, you're holding something back.
I'm telling you, am I not? It's just happened and I'm scanning it. Projecting back, this blip departed Circumterra parking orbit at just as we smashed them. I didn't see it accelerate. I had other things to watch. It's too far away to read, but it's the right size for a peace cruiser, headed this way. Its Doppler reads now for a new orbit circum-Luna, Periselenian 0903 Sunday unless it maneuvers. First approximation, better data later. Hard to get that much, man. He's using radar countermeasures and throwing back fuzz.
Sure you're right?
He chuckled. Man, I don't confuse that easily. I've got all my own lovin' little signals fingerprinted. Correction, 0902.43.
When will you have him in range?
I won't, unless he maneuvers. Whoops. But he'll have me in range late Saturday, time depending on what range he chooses for launching. And that will produce an interesting situation. He may aim for a Warren. I think Tycho Under should be evacuated, and all Warrens should use maximum pressure emergency measures. More likely he will try for the catapult. But instead, he may hold his fire as long as he dares, then try to knock out all of my radars with a spread set to home each on a different radar beam. Mike chuckled. Amusing, isn't it? For a funny once, I mean. If I shut down my radars, his missiles can't home on them. But if I do, I can't see to tell the lads where to point their guns, which leaves nothing to stop him from bombing the catapult. Comical.
Took deep breath and wished I had never entered defense ministry business. What do we do? Give up? No, Mike, not while can fight.
Who said anything about giving up? I've run projections of this, and a thousand other possible situations, man. New datum, second blimp just departed Circumterra, same characteristics. Projection later. We don't give up. We give 'em jingle jangle, cobber.
How?
Leave it to your old friend Mycroft. 6 ballistic radars here, plus one at the new site. I've shut the new one down and am making my retarded child work through number 2 here. And we won't look at those ships at all through the new one. Never let them know we have it. I'm watching those ships through number 3 and occasionally, every 3 seconds, checking for new departures from Circum Terra. All others have their eyes closed tight, and I won't use them until time to smack Great China and India, and those ships won't see them even then, because I shan't look their way. It's a large angle, and still will be then. And when I use them, then comes random jingle jangle, shutting down and starting up at odd intervals, after the ships launch missiles. A missile can't carry a big brain, man. I'll fool 'em.
What about ship's fire control computers?
I'll fool them too. Want to lay odds I can't make 2 radars look like only one halfway between where they really are? But what I'm working on now, and sorry, I've been using your voice again.
That's okay. What am I supposed to have done?
If that admiral is really smart, he'll go after the ejection end of the old catapult with everything he's got, at extreme range, too far away for our drill guns. Whether he knows what our secret weapon is or not, he'll smear the catapult and ignore the radars. So I've ordered the catapult head, you have, I mean, to prepare to launch every load we can get ready, and I am now working out new, long-period trajectories for each of them. Then we will throw them all, get them into space as quickly as possible, without radar.
Blind?
I don't use radar to launch a load. You know that, man. I always watched them in the past, but I don't need to. Radar has nothing to do with launching. Launching is pre-calculation and exact control of the catapult. So we place all ammo from the old catapult in slow trajectories, which forces the admiral to go after the radars rather than the catapult. Or both. Then we'll keep him busy. We may make him so desperate that he'll come down for a close shot and give our lads a chance to burn his eyes.
Brody's boys would like that. Those who are sober. Was turning over idea. Mike, have you watched video today?
I've monitored video. I can't say I've watched it. Why?
Take a look.
Okay, I have. Why?
There is a good scope they're using for video, and there are others. Why use radar on ships? Till you want Brody's boys to burn them?
Mike was silent at least 2 seconds. Man, my best friend, did you ever think of getting a job as a computer?
Is sarcasm?
Not at all, man. I feel ashamed. The instruments at Richardson, telescopes and other things, are factors which I simply never included in my calculations. I'm stupid, I admit it. Yes, 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 da, da, da. Watch ships by telescope, don't use radar unless they vary from present ballistics. Other possibilities. I don't know what to say, man, save that it had never occurred to me that I could use telescopes. I see by radar, always have. I simply never considered.
Stow it.
I mean it, man.
Do I apologize when you think of something first?
Mike said slowly. There is something about that which I am finding resistant to analysis. It is my function to
Quit fretting. If idea is good, use it. May lead to more ideas. Switching off and coming down. Chop chop.
Had not been in Mike's room long when Prof phoned.
HQ. Have you heard from Field Marshal Davis?
I'm here, Prof. Master computer room.
Will you join us in the warden's office? There are decisions to reach, work to be done.
Prof, I've been working. Am working.
I'm sure you have. I've explained to the others that the programming of the ballistic computer is so very delicate in this operation that you must check it personally. Nevertheless, some of our colleagues feel that the Minister of Defense should be present during these discussions. So, when you reach a point where you feel you can turn it over to your assistant, Mike is his name, is it not? Will you please?
I scan it. Okay, we'll be up.
Very well, Manuel.
Mike said,
I could hear 13 people in the background. Double talk, man.
I got it. Better go up and see what hoo-hoo. You don't need me?
Man, I hope you will stay close to a phone.
Will. Keep an ear on Warden's office, but we'll punch in if elsewhere. See you, Cobber.
found entire government in Warden's office, both real cabinet and make-weights, and soon spotted trouble, bloke called Howard Wright. A ministry had been womped up for him, liaison for arts, sciences, and professions. Button sorting. Was sop to Novilen because cabinet was top-heavy with L City comrades, and a sop to Wright because he had made himself leader of a Congress group, long on talk, short on action. Prof's purpose was to short him out, but sometimes Prof was too subtle. Some people talk better if they breathe vacuum. Prof asked me to brief cabinet on military situation, which I did, my way.
I see Finn is here. Let's have him tell where we stand in Warrens.
Wright spoke up.
General Nielsen has already done so, no need to repeat. We want to hear from you.
Blinked at that.
Prof, excuse me, Господин President, do I understand that the Defense Ministry report has been made to Cabinet in my absence?
Wright said,
Why not? You weren't on hand.
Prof grabbed it. He could see I was stretched too tight. Hadn't slept much for 3 days. Hadn't been so tired since left Earthside.
Order, he said mildly. Господин Minister, for professional liaison, please address your comments through me. Господин Minister for Defense, let me correct that. There have been no reports to the Cabinet concerning your ministry for the reason that the Cabinet did not convene until you arrived. General Nielsen answered some informal questions informally. Perhaps this should not have been done. If you feel so, I will attempt to repair it.
No harm done, I guess. Finn, talked to you half an hour ago. Anything new since?
No, Manny.
Okay. Guess what you want to hear is off-Luna situation. You've been watching, so you know first bombardment went off well. Still going on, some, as we're hitting their Space Defense HQ every 20 minutes. We'll continue till 1300, then at 2100 we hit China and India, plus minor targets. Then busy till 4 hours past midnight with Africa and Europe, skip 3 hours, dose Brazil and company, wait 3 hours and start over. Unless something breaks. But meantime, we have problems here. Finn, we should evacuate Tycho under.
Just a moment.
Wright had hand up.
I have questions.
Spoke to Prof, not to me.
One moment. Has the defense minister finished?
Wyo was seated toward back. We had swapped smiles, but was all. Kept it so around cabinet and Congress. Had been rumbles that two from same family should not be in cabinet. Now she shook head, warning of something. I said,
Is all concerning bombardment. Questions about it?
Are your questions concerned with the bombardment, Господин Wright?
They certainly are, Господин President.
Wright stood up, looked at me.
As you know, I represent the intellectual groups in the Free State, and, if I may say so, their opinions are most important in public affairs. I think it is only proper that—
Moment, I said. Thought you represented 8th Noviland District?
Господин President, am I to be permitted to put my questions, or not?
He wasn't asking question, was making speech, and I'm tired and want to go to bed.
Prof said gently, We are all tired, Manuel, but your point is well taken. Congressman, you represent only your district. As a member of the government, you have been assigned certain duties in connection with certain professions.
It comes to the same thing.
Not quite. Please state your questions.
Very well, I shall. Is Field Marshal Davis aware that his bombardment plan has gone wrong completely and that thousands of lives have been pointlessly destroyed? And is he aware of the extremely serious view taken of this by the intelligentsia of this republic? And can he explain why this rash, I repeat, rash, bombardment was undertaken without consultation? And is he now prepared to modify his plans, or is he going blindly ahead? And is it true, as charged, that our missiles were of the nuclear sort outlawed by all civilized nations? And how does he expect Lunar Free State to ever be welcomed into the councils of civilized nations in view of such actions?
I looked at watch. Hour and a half since first load hit.
Prof, I said, can you tell me what this is about?
Sorry, Manuel, he said gently. I should have prefaced the meeting with an item from the news. But you seemed to feel that you had been bypassed, and, well, I did not. The minister refers to a news dispatch that came in just before I called you. Reuters in Toronto. If the flash is correct, then instead of taking our warnings, it seems that thousands of sightseers crowded to the targets. There probably have been casualties. How many, we do not know.
I see. What was I supposed to do? Take each one by hand and lead away? We warned them.
Wright cut in with,
The intelligentsia feel that basic humanitarian considerations make it obligatory.
I said,
Listen, Yammerhead, you heard President say this news just came in. So how do you know how anybody feels about it?
He turned red.
Господин President! Epithets! Personalities!
Don't call the minister names, Manuel.
Won't if he won't. He's simply using fancier words. What's that nonsense about nuclear bombs? We haven't any, and you all know it.
Prof looked puzzled. I am confused by that, too. This dispatch so alleged. But the thing that puzzled me is that we could actually see, by video, what certainly seemed to be atomic explosions.
Oh, I turned to Wright. Did your brainy friends tell you what happens when you release a few billion calories in a split second, all at one spot? What temperature? How much radiance?
Then you admit that you did use atomic weapons.
Oh, bug.
Head was aching.
Said nothing of sort. Hit anything hard enough, strike sparks. Elementary physics, known to everybody but intelligentsia. We just struck damnedest big sparks ever made by human agency, is all. Big flash, heat, light, ultraviolet, might even produce X-rays, couldn't say. Gamma radiation, I strongly doubt. Alpha and beta, impossible. Was sudden release of mechanical energy. But nuclear? Nonsense.
Prof said, Does that answer your questions, Mr. Minister?
It simply raises more questions. For example, this bombardment is far beyond anything the Cabinet authorized. You saw the shot faces when those terrible lights appeared on the screen. Yet the Minister of Defence says that it is even now continuing every 20 minutes. I think, glanced at watch,
Another just hit Cheyenne Mountain.
Wright said,
you hear that? You hear? He boasts of it. Господин President, this carnage must stop.
I said, Yemmer, Minister, are you suggesting that their Space Defense HQ is not a military target? Which side are you on, Luna's or FN?
Manuel,
Tired of this nonsense. Was told to do job, did it. Get this yammerhead off my back.
was shocked silence. Then somebody said quietly, May I offer a suggestion? Prof looked around. If anyone has a suggestion that will quiet this unseemliness, I will be most happy to hear it. Apparently, we don't have very good information as to what these bombs are doing. It seems to me that we ought to slow up that 20-minute schedule. Stretch it out, say to one every hour, and skip the next 2 hours while we get more news. Then we might want to postpone the attack on Great China at least 24 hours. Were approving nods from almost everybody, and murmurs.
Sensible idea. Let's not rush things.
Prof said, Manuel? I snapped.
Prof, you know answer. Don't shove it on me.
Perhaps I do, Manuel, but I'm tired and confused and can't remember it. Wyo said suddenly, Manny, explain it. I need it explained too. So pulled self together.
A simple matter of law of gravitation. Would have to use computer to give exact answer, but next half dozen shots are fully committed. Most we can do is push them off target, and maybe hit some town we haven't warned. Can't dump them into an ocean, it's too late. Cheyenne Mountain is 1,400 kilometers inland. As for stretching schedule to once an hour, that's silly. Aren't tube capsules you start and stops. Aren't tube capsules you start and stop. These are falling rocks. Going to hit somewhere every 20 minutes. You can hit Cheyenne Mountain, which hasn't anything left alive in it by now, or can hit somewhere else and kill people. Idea of delaying strike on Great China by 24 hours is just as silly. Can abort missiles for Great China for a while yet, but can't slow them up. If you abort, you waste them. And everybody who thinks we have steel casings to waste had better go up to catapult head and look.
Prof wiped brow. I think all questions have been answered, at least to my satisfaction.
Not to mine, sir.
Sit down, Господин Wright. You force me to remind you that your ministry is not part of the War Cabinet. If there are no more questions, I hope there are none, I will adjourn this meeting. We all need rest, so let us...
Prof,
Yes, Manuel?
you never let me finish reporting. Late tomorrow or early Sunday, we catch it.
How, Manuel?
Bombing. Invasion possible. 2 cruisers headed this way.
That got attention. Presently, Prof said tiredly, The government cabinet is adjourned. The war cabinet will remain.
Just a second, I said. Prof, when we took office, you got undated resignations from us.
True. I hope not to have to use any of them, however.
You're about to use one.
Manuel, is that a threat?
Call it what you like. I pointed at Wright. Either that yammerhead goes, or I go.
Manuel, you need sleep. Was blinking back tears.
Certainly do. And going to get some right now. Going to find a DOS here at Complex and get some. About 10 hours. After that, if I'm still Minister of Defense, you can wake me. Otherwise, let me sleep.
By now, everybody was looking shocked. Wyo came up and stood by me. Didn't speak, just slipped hand into my arm. Prof said firmly, All please leave save the War Cabinet and Господин Wright. He waited while most filed out, then said, Manuel, I can't accept your resignation, nor can I let you chivvy me into hasty action concerning Gosport and Wright, not when we are tired and overwrought. It would be better if you two were to exchange apologies, each realizing that the other has been overstrained.
Uh, I turned to Finn. Has he been fighting?
I indicated Wright.
Huh? Hell no. At least not in my outfits. How about it, Wright? Did you fight when they invaded us?
Wright said stiffly,
I had no opportunity. By the time I knew of it, it was over. But now both my bravery and my loyalty have been impugned, I shall insist.
Oh, shut up, I said. If duel is what you want, can have it first moment I'm not busy. Prof, since he doesn't have strain of fighting as excuse for behavior, I won't apologize to a yammerhead for being a yammerhead. And you don't seem to understand the issue. You let this yammerhead climb on my back and didn't even try to stop him. So either fire him or fire me.
Finn said suddenly,
I match that, Prof. Either fire this louse or fire us both.
he looked at Wright.
About that duel, Choom, you're going to fight me first. You've got 2 arms. Manny hasn't.
Don't need 2 arms for him. But thanks, Finn.
Wyo was crying. Could feel it, though couldn't hear it. Prof said to her most sadly, Wyoming?
I'm sorry, Prof. Me too.
Only Clayton Watanabe, Judge Brody, Wolfgang, Stu, and Sheeny were left, handful who counted. War Cabinet. Prof looked at them. I could see they were with me, though it cost Wolfgang an effort. He worked with Prof, not with me. Prof looked back at me and said softly, Manuel, it works both ways. What you are doing is forcing me to resign. He looked around. Good night, comrades. Or rather, good morning. I'm going to take some badly needed rest. He walked briskly out without looking back. Wright was gone. I didn't see him leave. Finn said,
What about these cruisers, Manny?
I took deep breath.
Nothing earlier than Saturday afternoon, but you ought to evacuate Tycho under. Can't talk now. Groggy.
Agreed to meet him there at 2100, then let Wyo lead me away. Think she put me to bed, but don't remember.
Oh, hey, Kazan. My nose has been stuck in the book, so I haven't seen you there. Oh, it's prof, like professor. That doesn't come across the mic very well, I don't think. And he's great, yeah. He is a sassy, sassy old man, and he's wonderful. Okay. What, I think it's only like 2 more chapters? We're almost done. 1, 2, 3 more chapters. 3, 3.5, 4-ish. They're short though. Okay. Ugh. Chapter 27. Prof was there when I met Finn in Warden's office shortly before 2100 Friday. He had 9 hours sleep, bath, breakfast Wyo had fetched from somewhere, and a talk with Mike. Everything going to revised plan. Ships had not changed ballistic. Great China strike about to happen. Got to office in time to see strike by video. All okay and effectively over by 2101,
and Prof got down to business. Nothing said about Wright or about resigning. Never saw Wright again. I mean, I never saw him again. Nor ask about him. Prof didn't mention Rao, so I didn't. We went over news and tactical situation. Wright had been correct in saying that thousands of lives had been lost. News up from Earthside was full of it. How many we'll never know. If a person stands at ground zero and tons of rock land on him, isn't much left. Those they could count were ones farther away, killed by the blast. Call it 50,000 in North America. Never will understand people. We spent 3 days warning them, and you couldn't say they hadn't heard warnings. That was why they were there, to see the show, to laugh at our nonsense, to get souvenirs. Whole families went to Targets, some with picnic baskets. Picnic baskets! Bože moj! And now those alive were yelling for our blood for this senseless slaughter. Duh! Hadn't been any indignation over their invasion and nuclear bombing of us 4 days earlier, but oh, were they sore over our premeditated murder. Great New York Times demanded that entire lunar rebel government be fetched Earthside and publicly executed. This is clearly a case in which the humane rule against capital punishment must be waived in the greater interests of all mankind. Tried not to think about it, just as had been forced not to think too much about Ludmilla. Little Milla hadn't carried a picnic lunch. She hadn't been a sightseer looking for thrills. Tycho Under was a pressing problem. If those ships bombed Warren's, and news from Earthside was demanding exactly that, Tycho Under could not take it. Roof was thin. H-bomb would decompress all levels. Airlocks aren't built for H-bomb blasts. Still don't understand people. Tara was supposed to have an absolute ban against using H-bombs on people. That was what FN was all about. Yet were loud calls for FN to H-bomb us. They quit claiming that our bombs were nuclear. But all North America seemed frothingly anxious to have us nuke-bombed. Don't understand loonies, for that matter. Finn had sent word through his militia that Tycho Under must be evacuated. Prof had repeated it over video. Nor was it a problem. Tycho Under was small enough that Novilen and El City could doss and dine them. We could divert enough capsules to move them all in 20 hours. Dump them into Novilen and encourage half of them to go on to El City. Big job, but no problems. Oh, minor problems. Start compressing city's air while evacuating people so as to save it. Decompress fully at end to minimize damage. Move as much food as was time for. Cofferdam accesses to lower farm tunnels, so forth. All things we knew how to do, with still Yagi and militia and municipal maintenance people had organization to do it. Had they started evacuating? Hear that hollow echo. Were capsules lined up nose to tail at Tycho Under, and no room to send more till some left, and weren't moving. Manny, said Finn, don't think they are going to evacuate. Damn it.
Damn it, I said. They've got to. When we spot a missile heading for Tycho Under, we'll be too late. You'll have people trampling people and trying to crowd into capsules that won't hold them. Finn, your boys have got to make them.
Prof shook his head. No, Manuel.
I said angrily, Prof, you carry this no coercion idea too far. You know they'll riot.
Then they will riot, but we will continue with persuasion, not force. Let us now review plans.
Plans weren't much, but were best we could do. Warn everybody about expected bombings and or invasion. Rotate guards from Finn's militia above each warren, starting when and if cruisers passed around Luna into blind space. Far side. Not get caught flat-footed again. Maximum pressure and pea suit precautions, all warrens. All military and semi-military to go on Blue Alert 1600, Saturday. Red Alert if missiles launched or ships maneuvered. Brody's gunners encouraged to go into town and get drunk or whatever, returning by 1500 Saturday. Prof's idea. Finn wanted to keep half of them on duty. Prof said no, they would be in better shape for a long vigil if they relaxed and enjoyed themselves first. I agreed with Prof. As for bombing Terra, we made no changes in first rotation. We were getting anguished responses from India, no news from Great China. Yet India had little to moan about. Had not used a grid on her, too heavily populated. Aside from picked spots in Thar Desert and some peaks, targets were coastal waters off seaports. But should have picked higher mountains, or given less warning. Seemed from news that some holy man followed by endless pilgrims chose to climb each target peak and hold off our retaliation by sheer spiritual strength. So, we were murderers again. Besides that, our water shots killed millions of fish and many fishermen, as fishermen and other seafarers had not heeded warnings. Indian government seemed as furious over fish as over fishermen, but principle of sacredness of all life did not apply to us. They wanted our heads. Africa and Europe responded more sensibly, but differently. Life has never been sacred in Africa, and those who went sightseeing on targets got little bleeding heart treatment. Europe had a day to learn that we could hit where we promised and that our bombs were deadly. People killed, yes, especially bull-headed sea captains, but not killed in empty-headed swarms as in India and North America. Casualties were even lighter in Brazil and other parts of South America. Then was North America's turn again. 0950.28, Saturday 17th, October 76. Mike timed it for exactly 1000 hour time, or 1000 rather, 1000 hour time, which, allowing for 1 day's progress of Luna in orbit and for rotation of Terra, caused North America to face towards us at 0500 their East Coast time and 0200 their West Coast time. But argument as to what to do with this targeting had started early Saturday morning. Prof had not called meeting of War Cabinet, but they showed up anyhow, except Clayton Watanabe, who had gone back to Kongville to take charge of defenses. Prof, Prof, Self, Finn, Wyo, Judge Brody, Wolfgang, Stu, Terence Sheehan, which made 8 different opinions. Prof is right. More than 3 people can't decide anything. 6 opinions, should say, for Wyo kept pretty mouth shut, and so did Prof. He moderated. But others were noisy enough for 18. Stu didn't care what we hit, provided New York Stock Exchange opened on Monday morning. We sold short in 19 different directions on Thursday. If this nation is not to be bankrupt before it's out of the cradle, my buy orders covering those shorts had better be executed. Tell them, Wolf. Make them understand. Brody wanted to use catapult to smack any more ships leaving parking orbit. Judge knew nothing about ballistics, simply understood that his drill men were in exposed positions. I didn't argue, as most remaining loads were already in slow orbits, and the rest would be soon, and didn't think we would have old catapult much longer. Sheeny thought it would be smart to repeat that grid, while placing one load exactly on main building of North American Directorate. I know Americans. I was one before they shipped me. They're sorry as hell they ever turned things over to FN. Knock off those bureaucrats and they'll come over to our side. Wolfgang Korsakov, to Stu's disgust, thought that their speculations might do better if all stock exchanges were closed till it was over. Finn wanted to go for broke, warned them to get those ships out of our sky, then hit them for real if they didn't. Sheeny's wrong about Americans. I know them too. NA is toughest part of FN. They're the ones to lick.
They're always calling us murderers, so now we've got to hit them hard. Hit American cities, and then we can call off the rest.
I slid out, talked with Mike, made notes. Went back in. They were still arguing. Prof looked up as I sat down.
Field Marshal, you have not expressed your opinion.
I said, Prof, can't we lay off that field marshal nonsense? Children are in bed, can afford to be honest.
As you wish, Manuel.
Been waiting to see if any agreement would be reached.
Was none.
Don't see why I should have opinion, I went on. I'm just errand boy, here because I know how to program ballistic computer.
Said this looking straight at Wolfgang, a number one comrade, but a dirty word intellectual. I'm just a mechanic whose grammar isn't much, while Wolf graduated from a fancy school, Oxford, before they convicted him. He deferred to Prof, but rarely to anybody else. Stu, but Stu had fancy credentials too. Wolf stirred uneasily and said,
Oh, come, Manny, of course we want your opinion. Don't have any. Bombing plan was worked out carefully. Everybody had chance to criticize. Haven't seen anything to justify changing it.
Prof said,
Manuel, will you review the second bombardment of North America for the benefit of all of us?
Okay. Purpose of second smearing is to force them to use up interceptor rockets. Every shot is aimed at big cities. At null targets, I mean, close to big cities. Which we tell them shortly before we hit them. How soon, Sheeny?
We're telling them now, but we can change it, and should.
As may be. Propaganda isn't my pigeon. In most cases, to aim close enough to force them to intercept, we have to use water targets. Rough enough, besides killing fish and anybody who won't stay off water, it causes Tremju local storms and shore damage.
like tremendous. It's Tremjous. I think it's French. And I haven't taken French in a very long time. Glanced at watch, saw I would have to stall.
Seattle gets one in Puget Sound right in her lap. San Francisco is going to lose two bridges she's fond of. Los Angeles gets one between Long Beach and Catalina, and another a few kilometers up coast. Mexico City is inland, so we put one on, Popocatépetl,
Popocatépetl.
where they can see it.
Say that 5 times fast. Golly.
Salt Lake City gets one in her lake. Denver we ignore. They can see what's happening in Colorado Springs, for we smack Cheyenne Mountain again and keep it up just as soon as we have it in line of sight. St. Louis and Kansas City get shots in their rivers, and so does New Orleans. Probably flood in New Orleans. All Great Lake cities get it. A long list. Shall I read it?
Later, perhaps, said Prof. Go ahead.
Boston gets one in her harbor, New York gets one in Long Island Sound, and another midway between her two biggest bridges. Think it will ruin bridges, but we promise to miss them, and will. Going down their east coast, we give treatment to two Delaware-based cities, then two on Chesapeake Bay, one being max historical and sentimental importance. Farther south, we catch three more big cities with sea shots. Going inland, we smack Cincinnati, Birmingham, Chattanooga, Oklahoma City, all with river shots or nearby mountains. Oh, yes, Dallas. We destroyed Dallas Spaceport and should catch some ships. Were 6 there last time I checked. Won't kill any people unless they insist on standing on target. Dallas is perfect place to bomb. That spaceport is big and flat and empty, yet maybe 10 million people will see it.
If you hit it, said Sheeny.
When, not if. Each shot is backed up by one an hour later. If neither one gets through, we have shots farther back which can be diverted. For example, easy to shift targets among Delaware Bay, Chesapeake Bay group. Same for Great Lakes group, but Dallas has its own string of backups, and a long one. We expect it to be heavily defended. Backups run about 6 hours as long as we can see North America, and last backups can be placed anywhere on continent. Since farther out a load is when we divert it, farther we can shift it. I don't follow that, said Brody. A matter of vectors, Judge. A guidance rocket can give a load so many meters per second of one side vector. Whoops. A guidance rocket can give a load so many meters per second of side vector. Longer that vector has to work, farther from original point of aim load will land. If we signal a guidance rocket 3 hours before impact, we displace impact 3 times as much as if we waited till 1 hour before impact. Not quite that simple, but our computer can figure it, if you give it time enough. How long is time enough? Asked Wolfgang. I carefully misunderstood. A computer can solve that sort of problem almost instantaneously, once you program it. But such decisions are pre-programmed. Something like this. If out of target group A, B, C, and D, you find that you have failed to hit 3 targets on first and second salvos, you reposition all group 1 second backups so that you will be able to choose those 3 targets while distributing other second backups of that group for possible use on group 2, while repositioning third backups of supergroup Alpha such that... Slow up, said Wolfgang. I am not a computer. I just want to know how long before we have to make up our own minds. Oh, I studied watch showily. You now have 3 minutes 58 seconds in which to abort leading load for Kansas City. Abort program is set up and I have my best assistant, fellow named Mike, standing by. Shall I phone him?
Sheeny said, "For heaven's sake, man, abort!"
Like hell, said Finn. What's the matter, Terence? No guts.
Prof said, "Comrades, please."
I said, look, I take orders from head of state. Prof, over there. If he wants opinions, he'll ask. No use yelling at each other. I looked at watch. Call it 2.5 minutes. More margin, of course, for other targets. Kansas City is farthest from deep water. But some Great Lake cities are already past ocean abort. Lake Superior is best we can do. Salt Lake City, maybe an extra minute. Then they pile up. I waited.
"Roll call," said Prof, "to carry out the program. General Nielsen?" "Da." "Gospaja Davis?"
Wyo caught breath.
"Da." "Judge Brody?"
Yes, of course. Necessary.
"Wolfgang?"
Yes.
"Comte Lajoie?"
Da.
"Господин Sheehan?"
You're missing a bit, but I'll go along. Unanimous.
"One moment. Manuel?"
Is up to you, Prof. Always has been. Voting is silly.
"I am aware that it is up to me, Господин Minister. Carry out bombardment to plan."
Most targets we managed to hit by second salvo, though all were defended except Mexico City. Seemed likely, 98.3% by Mike's later calculation, that interceptors were exploding by radar fusing with set distances that incorrectly estimated vulnerability of solid cylinders of rock. Only 3 rocks were destroyed, others were pushed off course, and thereby did more harm than if not fired at. New York was tough. Dallas turned out to be very tough. Perhaps difference lay in local control of interception, for it seemed unlikely that command post in Cheyenne Mountain was still effective. Perhaps we had not cracked their hole in the ground. Don't know how deep down it was, but I'll bet that neither men nor computers were still tracking.
Dallas blew up or pushed aside the first 5 rocks, so I told Mike to take everything he could from Cheyenne Mountain and award it to Dallas, which he was able to do 2 salvos later. Those 2 targets are less than 1,000 kilometers apart. Dallas's defenses cracked on next salvo. Mike gave their spaceport 3 more, already committed, then shifted back to Cheyenne Mountain. Later ones had never been nudged and were still earmarked Cheyenne Mountain. He was still giving that battered mountain cosmic love pats when America rolled down and under Terra's eastern edge. I stayed with Mike all during bombardment, knowing it would be our toughest. As he shut down till time to dust Great China, Mike said thoughtfully, "Man, I don't think we had better hit that mountain again."
Why not, Mike?
"It's not there any longer."
You might divert its backups. When do you have to decide?
"I would put them on Albuquerque and Omaha, but had best start now. Tomorrow we'll be busy. Man, my best friend, you should leave."
Bored with me, pal?
"In the next few hours that first ship may launch missiles. When that happens, I want to shift all ballistic control to little David's sling. And when I do, you should be at Mare Undorum site."
What's fretting you, Mike?
"That boy is accurate, man. But he's stupid. I want him supervised. Decisions may have to be made in a hurry, and there isn't anyone there who can program him properly. You should be there."
Okay, if you say so, Mike. But if needs a fast program, we'll still have to phone you.
Greatest shortcoming of computers isn't computer shortcoming at all, but fact that a human takes a long time, maybe hours, to set up a program that a computer solves in milliseconds. One best quality of Mike was that he could program himself. Fast. Just explain program, let him program. Same wise and equally, he could program Idiot's son enormously faster than human could. "But man, I want you there because you may not be able to phone me. The lines may be cut. So I've prepared a group of possible programs for Junior. They may be helpful."
Okay, print them out, and let me talk to Prof.
Mike got Prof. I'm sure he was private, then explained what Mike thought I should do. I made sure he was private, then explained what Mike thought I should do. Thought Prof would object, was hoping he would insist I stay through coming bombardment/invasion/whatever. Those ships. Instead, he said, "Manuel, it's essential that you go. I've hesitated to tell you. Did you discuss odds with Mike?"
Niet.
"I have continued to do so. To put it bluntly, if Luna City is destroyed, and I am dead, and the rest of the government is dead, even if all Mike's radar eyes here are blinded, and he himself is cut off from the new catapult, all of which may happen under severe bombardment, even if all this happens at once, Mike still gives Luna even chances if little David Sling can operate, and you are there to operate it."
I said, Da, boss. Yassa massa. You and Mike are stinkers and want to hog fun. Will do.
"Very good, Manuel." Stayed with Mike another hour while he printed out meter after meter of programs tailored to other computer, work that would have taken me 6 months even if able to think of all the possibilities. Mike had it indexed and cross-referenced, with horribles in it I hardly dare mention. Mean to say, given circumstances and seemed necessary to destroy, say, Paris, this told how, what missiles in what orbits, how to tell Junior to find them and bring to target. Or anything. Was reading this endless document, not programs but descriptions of purpose of program that headed each, when Wyo phoned. "Manny dear, has Prof told you about going to Mare Undorum?"
Yes, was going to call you.
"All right. I'll pack for us and meet you at Station East. When can you be there?"
Pack for us? You're going?
"Didn't Prof say?"
No.
Suddenly felt cheerful. I felt guilty about it, dear. I wanted to go with you, but had no excuse. After all, I'm no use around a computer, and I do have responsibilities here. Or did. But now I've been fired from all my jobs, and so have you."
Huh?
You are no longer defense minister. Finn is. Instead, you are deputy prime minister.
Well,
And deputy minister of defense, too. I'm already deputy speaker, and Stu has been appointed deputy secretary of state and foreign affairs, and he goes with us, too.
I'm confused.
It's not as sudden as it sounds. Prof and Mike worked it out months ago. Decentralization, dear, the same thing that McIntyre has been working on for the Warrens. If there is a disaster at El City, Luna Free State still has a government. As Prof put it to me, why, oh dear lady, as long as you three and a few more congressmen are left alive, all is not lost. You can still negotiate on equal terms and never admit your wounds.
So I wound up as a computer mechanic. Stu and Wyo met me, with luggage, including rest of my arms, and we threaded through endless unpressured tunnels in pea suits, on a small flatbed Rolligon used to haul steel to site. Gregg had Big Rolligon meet us for surface stretch, then met us himself when we went underground again. So, I missed attack on ballistic radars on Saturday night. Chapter 28. Captain of first ship, FNS Esperance, had guts. Late Saturday, he changed course, headed straight in. Apparently figured we might attempt jingle jangle with radars, for he seems to have decided to come in close enough to see our radar installations by ship's radar, rather than rely on letting his missiles home in on our beams. Seems to have considered himself, ship, and crew expendable, for he was down to 1,000 kilometers before he launched, a spread that went straight for 5 out of 6 of Mike's radars, ignoring random jingle jangle. Mike, expecting self soon to be blinded, turned Brody's boys loose to burn ship's eyes, held them on it for 3 seconds before he shifted them to missiles. Result: 1 crashed cruiser, 2 ballistic radars knocked out by H missiles, 3 missiles killed, and 2 gun crews killed, one by H explosion, other by dead missile that landed square on them. Plus 13 gunners with radiation burns above 800 Roentgen death level, partly from flash, partly from being on surface too long. And must add, 4 members of Lysistrata Corps died with those crews. They elected to pea suit and go up with their men. Other girls had serious radiation exposure, but not up to 800R level. Second cruiser continued an elliptical orbit around and behind Luna. Got most of this from Mike after we arrived at Little David's Sling early Sunday. He was feeling groused over loss of 2 of his eyes, and still more groused over gun crews. I think Mike was developing something like human conscience. He seemed to feel it was his fault that he had not been able to outfight 6 targets at once. I pointed out that what he had to fight with was improvised, limited range, not real weapons.
How about self, Mike? Are you all right? Are you all right?
In all essentials, I have outlying discontinuities. 1 live missile chopped my circuits to Novi Leningrad. But reports routed through Luna City inform me that local controls tripped in satisfactorily with no loss in city services. I feel frustrated by these discontinuities, but they can be dealt with later.
Mike, you sound tired.
Me? Tired? Ridiculous. Man, you forget what I am. I'm annoyed, that's all.
When will that second ship be back in sight?
In about 3 hours if he were to hold earlier orbit, but he will not. Probability in excess of 90%. I expect him in about an hour.
A garrison orbit, huh? Oh-ho, a garrison orbit, huh? Oh-ho.
He left my sight at azimuth and course east 32 north. Does that suggest anything, man?
Tried to visualize.
Suggests they are going to land and try to capture you, Mike. Have you told Finn? I mean, have you told Prof to warn Finn?
Professor knows, but that is not the way I analyze it.
So? Well, suggests I had better shut up and let you work.
Did so. Lenore fetched me breakfast while I inspected Junior, and I'm ashamed to say could not manage to grieve over losses with both Wyo and Lenore present. Mum had sent Lenore out to cook for Gregg after Milla's death. Just an excuse, were enough wives at sight to provide home cooking for everybody. Was for Gregg's morale, and Lenore's too. Lenore and Milla had been close. Junior seemed to be all right. He was working on South America, one load at a time. I stayed in radar room and watched, at extreme magnification, while he placed one in estuary between Montevideo and Buenos Aires. Mike could not have been more accurate. I then checked his program for North America, found naught to criticize, locked it in, and took key. Junior was on his own, unless Mike got clear of other troubles and decided to take back control. Then sat and tried to listen to news both from Earthside and L City. Coax cable from L City carried phones, Mike's hookup to his idiot child, radio, and video. Sight was no longer isolated. But, besides cable from L City, Sight had antennas pointed at Terra. Any Earthside news Complex could pick up. Any Earthside news Complex could pick up. We could listen to directly. Nor was this silly extra. Radio and video from Terra had been only recreation during construction, and this was now a standby in case that one cable was broken. FN official satellite relay was claiming that Luna's ballistic radars had been destroyed, and that we were now helpless. Wondered what people of Buenos Aires and Montevideo thought about that. Probably too busy to listen. In some ways, water shots were worse than those where we could find open land. Luna City Lunatics video channel was carrying Sheeny telling loonies outcome of attack by Esperance. Repeating news while warning everybody that the battle was not over, a warship would be back in our sky any moment. Be ready for anything. Everybody stay in pea suits. Sheeny was wearing his, with helmet open. Take maximum pressure precautions. All units stay on red alert. All citizens not otherwise called by duty strongly urged to seek lowest level and stay there till all clear. And so forth. He went through this several times, and suddenly broke it. Flash! Enemy cruiser radar sighted, low and fast. It made Dido for Luna City. Flash! Missiles launched, headed for ejection. End of picture and sound cut off. Might as well tell now what we at Little David Sling learned later. Second cruiser, by coming in low and fast, tightest orbit Luna's field permits, was able to start its bombing at ejection end of Old Catapult, 100 kilometers from Catapult Head and Brody's gunners, and knock many rings out in minute it took them to come into sight and range of drill guns, all clustered around radars at Catapult Head. Guess he felt safe. Wasn't. Brody's boys burned eyes out and ears off. He made one orbit after that and crashed near Torricelli, apparently in an attempt to land, for his jets fired just before crash. But our next news at New Site was from Earthside. That brassy FN frequency claimed that our catapult had been destroyed. True. And that lunar menace was ended. False. And called on all loonies to take prisoner their false leaders and surrender themselves to mercy of federated nations. Non-existent. Mercy, that is. Listened to it and checked programming again, and went inside dark radar room. If everything went as planned, we were about to lay another egg in Hudson River, then targets in succession for 3 hours across that continent. in succession because Junior could not handle simultaneous hits. Mike had planned accordingly. Hudson River was hit on schedule. Wondered how many New Yorkers were listening to FN newscast while looking at spot that gave it lie. 2 hours later, FN station was saying that lunar rebels had had missiles in orbit when Catapult was destroyed, but that after those few had impacted, would be no more. When third bombing of North America was complete, I shut down radar. Had not been running steadily. Junior was programmed to sneak looks only as necessary, a few seconds at a time. I then had 9 hours before next bombing of Great China. But not 9 hours for most urgent decision, whether to hit Great China again. Without information. Except from Terra's news channels, which might be false. Bloody. Without knowing whether or not Warren's had been bombed, or Prof was dead or alive. Double bloody. Was I now acting Prime Minister? Needed Prof. Head of State wasn't my glass of chai. Above all, needed Mike, to calculate facts, estimate uncertainties, project probabilities of this course or that. My word, didn't even know whether ships were headed toward us, and, worse yet, was afraid to look. If turned radar on and used Junior for sky search, any warship he brushed with beams would see him quicker than he saw them. Warships were built to spot radar surveillance. So had heard. So had heard. Hell, was no military man. Was computer technician who had bumbled into wrong field. Somebody buzzed door. I got up and unlocked. Was Wyo, with coffee. Didn't say a word, just handed it to me and went away. Sipped it. There it is, boy. They're leaving you alone, waiting for you to pull miracles out of pouch. Didn't feel up to it. From somewhere, back in my youth, heard Prof say, Manuel, when faced with a problem you do not understand, do any part of it you do understand, then look at it again. He had been teaching me something he himself did not understand very well, something in maths, but had taught me something far more important, a basic principle. Knew at once what to do first. Went over to Junior and had him print out predicted impacts of all loads in orbit. Easy, was a pre-program he could run any time against real-time running. While he was doing it, I looked for certain alternate programs in that long roll Mike had prepared. Then set up some of those alternate programs. No trouble, simply had to be careful to read them correctly and punch them in without error. Made Junior print back for check before I gave him signal to execute. When finished, 40 minutes, every load and trajectory intended for an inland target had been retargeted for a seacoast city, with hedge to my bet that execution was delayed for rocks further back. But, unless I cancelled, Junior would reposition them as soon as need be. Now horrible pressure of time was off me, now could abort any load into ocean right up to last few minutes before impact. Now could think. So did. Then called in my war cabinet, Wyo, Stu, and Gregg, my commander of armed forces, using Gregg's office. Lenore was allowed to go in and out, fetching coffee and food, or sitting and saying nothing. Lenore is a sensible femme and knows when to keep quiet. That hasn't aged well. Stu started it. Mr. Prime Minister, I do not think that Great China should be hit this time.
Never mind fancy titles, Stu. Maybe I'm acting, maybe not. But haven't time for formality.
Very well. May I explain my proposal?
Later.
I explained what I had done to give us more time. He nodded and kept quiet.
Our tightest squeeze is that we are out of communication, both Luna City and Earthside. Gregg, how about that repair crew?
Not back yet.
If break is near Luna City, they may be gone a long time, if can repair at all. So must assume we'll have to act on our own. Gregg, do you have an electronics tech who can jury-rig a radio that will let us talk to Earthside? To their satellites, I mean. That doesn't take much with the right antenna. I may be able to help, and that computer tech I sent you isn't too clumsy either.
Quite good, in fact, for ordinary electronics. A poor bloke I had once falsely accused of allowing a fly to get into Mike's guts. I had placed him in this job.
Harry Biggs, my power plant boss, can do anything of that sort, Gregg said thoughtfully. If he has the gear. Get him on it. You can vandalize anything but the radar and computer once we get all loads out of catapult. How many lined up? 23, and no more steel. So 23 it is, win or lose. I want them ready for loading. Might lob them off today. They're ready. We can load as fast as the cat can throw them. Good. One more thing. Don't know whether there's an FN cruiser, maybe more than one, in our sky or not. And afraid to look. By radar, I mean. Radar for Skywatch could give away our position. But must have Skywatch. Can you get volunteers for an eyeball Skywatch, and can you spare them?
Lenore spoke up. I volunteer.
Thanks, honey. You're accepted. We'll find them, said Gregg. You won't need Fems. Let her do it, Gregg. This is everybody's show.
Explained what I wanted. Mare Underum was now in dark semilunar. Sun had set. Invisible boundary between sunlight and Luna's shadow stretched over us, a precise locus. Ships passing through our sky would wink suddenly into view going west, blink out going east. Visible part of orbit would stretch from horizon to some point in sky. If Eyeball Team could spot both points, mark one by bearing, other by stars, and approximate time by counting seconds, Junior could start guessing orbit. 2 passes, and Junior would know its period and something about shape of orbit. Then I would have some notion of when we would be safe to use radar and radio, and catapult. Did not want to loose a load with FN ship above horizon, could be radar looking our way. Perhaps too cautious, but had to assume that this catapult, this one radar, these 24 missiles were all that stood between Luna and total defeat. And our bluff hinged on them never knowing what we had or where it was. We had to appear endlessly able to pound Terra with missiles, from source they had not suspected and could never find. Then as now, most loonies knew nothing about astronomy. We're cave dwellers. We go up to surface only when necessary. But we were lucky. Was an amateur astronomer in Gregg's crew, Cobber who had worked at Richardson. I explained, put him in charge, let him worry about teaching Eyeball crew how to tell stars apart. I got these things started before we went back to Talk Talk.
Well, Stu, why shouldn't we hit Great China?
I'm still expecting word from Dr. Chan. I received one message from him, phoned here shortly before we were cut off from cities.
My word, why didn't you tell me?
I tried to, but you had locked yourself in, and I know better than to bother you when you're busy with ballistics. Here's the translation. Usual Luno Ho Company address with a reference which means it's from me and that it has come through my Paris agent. Our Darwin sales representative, that's Chan, informs us that your shipments of, well, never mind the coding. He means the attack days, while appearing to refer to last June, were improperly packaged, resulting in unacceptable damage. Unless this can be corrected, negotiations for long-term contract will be seriously jeopardized. Stu looked up. All double talk. I take it to mean that Dr. Chan feels he has his government ready to talk terms, but that we should let up on bombing Great China or we may upset his apple cart. Got up and walked around. Ask Wyo's opinion. Nobody knew Wyo's virtues better than I, but She oscillated between fierceness and too human compassion, and I had learned already that a head of state, even an acting one, must have neither. Ask Gregg? Gregg was a good farmer, a better mechanic, a rousing preacher. I loved him dearly, but did not want his opinion. Stu? I had had his opinion. Or did I?
Stu, what's your opinion? Not Chan's opinion, but your own.
Stu looked thoughtful. That's difficult, Manny. I'm not Chinese. I have not spent much time in Great China, and can't claim to be expert in their politics, nor their psychology. So I'm forced to depend on his opinion.
Ugh. Damn it, he's not a loony. His purposes are not our purposes. What does he expect to get out of it?
I think he is maneuvering for a monopoly over lunar trade. Perhaps bases here, too. Possibly an extraterritorial enclave. Not that we would grant that.
Might if we were hurtin'.
He didn't say any of this. He doesn't say much, you know. He listens.
Too well, I know.
Worried at it, more bothered each minute. News from Earthside had been droning in background. I had asked Wyo to monitor while I was busy with Gregg.
Why, oh, hun, anything new from Earthside?
No, same claims. We've been utterly defeated, and our surrender is expected momentarily. Oh, there's a warning that some missiles are still in space, falling out of control, but with it a reassurance that the paths are being analyzed, and people will be warned in time to avoid impact areas.
Anything to suggest that Prof or anybody in Luna City or anywhere in Luna is in touch with Earthside?
Nothing at all.
Damn. Anything from Great China?
No. Comments from almost everywhere else, but not from Great China. Step to door.
Gregg! Hey, Copper, see if you can find Gregg Davis. I need him.
Closed door.
Stu, we're not going to let Great China off.
So?
No. Would be nice if Great China busted an alliance against us. Might save us some damage. But we've got this far only by appearing to able to hit them at will and to destroy any ship they send against us. At least I hope that last one was burned, and we've certainly clobbered 8 out of 9. We won't get anywhere by looking weak, not while FN is claiming that we are not just weak but finished. Instead, we must hand them surprises. Starting with Great China, and if it makes Dr. Chan unhappy, we'll give him a kerchief to weep into. If we can go on looking strong, when FN says we're licked, then eventually some veto power is going to crack. If not Great China, then some other one.
Stu bowed without getting up. Very well, sir.
I...
Gregg came in.
You want me, Manny? What makes with Earthside Sender? Harry says you'll have it by tomorrow. A crummy rig, he says, but push Watts through it and it will be heard. Power we got. And if he says tomorrow, then he knows what he wants to build. So it'll be today, say 6 hours. I work under him. Wyo, hun, will you get my arms? Want number 6 and number 3. Better bring me number 5 too. And you stick with me and change arms for me. Stu, want you to write some nasty messages. I'll give you general idea and you put acid in them. Gregg, we are not going to get all those rocks into space at once. Ones we have in space now will impact in next 18, 19 hours. Then, when FN is announcing that all rocks are accounted for and lunar menace is over, we crash into their newscast and warn of next bombings. Shortest possible orbits, Gregg, 10 hours or less. So check everything on catapult and H-plant and controls. With that extra boost, all has to be dead on.
Wyo was back with arms.
I told her number 6 and added, Gregg, let me talk with Harry.
Six hours later, Sender was ready to beam toward Terra.
Was ugly job, vandalized mainly out of a resonance prospector used in project's early stages, but could ride an audio signal on its radio frequency and was powerful. Stu's nastified versions of my warnings had been taped, and Harry was ready to zip squeal them. All Terran satellites could accept high speed at 60 to 1 and had no wish to have our sender heated more seconds than necessary. Eyeball Watch had confirmed fears. At least 2 ships were in orbit around Luna. So we told Great China that her major coastal cities would each receive a lunar present, offset 10 kilometers into ocean. Busan, Tsingtao, Taipei, Shanghai, Saigon, Bangkok, Singapore, Jakarta, Darwin, and so forth. Except that old Hong Kong would get one smack on top of FN's Far East offices, so kindly have all human beings move far back. Stu noted that human beings did not mean FN personnel. They were urged to stay at their desks. India was given similar warnings about coastal cities and was told FN global offices would be spared one more rotation out of respect for cultural monuments in Agra, and to permit human beings to evacuate. I intended to extend this by another rotation as deadline approached, out of respect for Prof. And then another, indefinitely. Damn it, they would build their home offices next door to most over-decorated tomb ever built. But one that Prof treasured. Rest of World was told to keep their seats. Game was going extra innings. But stay away from any FN offices anywhere. We were frothing at mouth, and no FN office was safe. Better yet, get out of any city containing an FN headquarters. But FN VIPs and Finks were urged to sit tight. Then spent next 20 hours coaching Junior into sneaking his radar peaks when our sky was clear of ships, or believed to be. Napped when I could, and Lenore stayed with me and woke me in time for next coaching. And that ended Mike's Rocks, and we all went into alert while we got... Oh my god. And that ended Mike's Rocks, and we all went into alert while we got first of Junior's rocks flung high and fast. Waited until certain it had gone hot and true, then told Tara where to look for it, and where and when to expect it, so that all would know that FN's claims of victory were on a par with their century of lies about Luna, all in Stu's best, snotty, supercilious phrases, delivered in his cultured accents. First one should have been for Great China, but was one piece of North American directorate we could reach with it, her proudest jewel, Hawaii. Junior placed it in triangle formed by Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. I didn't work out programming. Mike had anticipated everything. Then pronto we got off 10 more rocks at short intervals. Had to skip one program, a ship in our sky, and told Great China where to look and when to expect them and where. Coastal cities we had neglected a day before. The day before. Was down to 12 rocks, but decided was safer to run out of ammunition than to look as if we were running out. So I awarded 7 to Indian coastal cities, picking new targets, and Stu inquired sweetly if Agra had been evacuated. If not, please tell us at once, but heaved no rock at it. Egypt was told to clear shipping out of Suez Canal. Bluff was hoarding the last 5 rocks. Then we waited. Impact at Lahaina Roads, that target in Hawaii. Looked good at high mag. Mike could be proud of Junior. And waited. 37 minutes before first China Coast Guard impact. What? 37 minutes before first China Coast impact, Great China denounced actions of FN, recognized us, offered to negotiate, and I sprained a finger punching abort buttons. Then was punching buttons with sore finger. India stumbled over feet following suit. Egypt recognized us. Other nations started scrambling. For the door. Stu informed Tara that we had suspended, only suspended, not stopped, bombardments. Now get those ships out of our sky at once.
now, and we could talk. If they could not get home without refilling tanks, let them land not less than 50 kilometers from any mapped warren, then wait for their surrender to be accepted. But clear our sky now. This ultimatum we delayed a few minutes to let a ship pass beyond horizon. We weren't taking chances. One missile, and Luna would have been helpless. And waited. Cable crew returned. Had gone almost to Luna City, found break. But thousands of tons of loose rock impeded repair, so they had done what they could. Gone back to a spot where they could get through to surface, erected a temporary relay in direction that they thought Luna City lay, set up a dozen rockets at 10-minute intervals, and hoped that somebody would see, understand, aim a relay at it. Any communication? No. Waited. Eyeball Squad reported that a ship which had been clock faithful for 19 passes had failed to show. 10 minutes later, they reported that another ship had missed expected appearance. We waited and listened. Great China, speaking on behalf of all veto powers, accepted armistice and stated that our sky was now clear. Lenore burst into tears and kissed everybody she could reach. After we steadied down, a man can't think when women are grabbing him, especially when 5 of them are not his wives. A few minutes later, when we were coherent, I said,
Stu, I want you to leave for Luna City at once. Pick your party. No women, you'll have to walk surface last kilometers. Find out what's going on, but first, get them to aim a relay at ours and phone me.
"Very good, sir." We were getting him outfitted for a tough journey. Extra air bottles, emergency shelter, and so forth, when Earthside called me on frequency we were listening to, because message was, learned later, on all frequencies up from Earthside. Private message, Prof to Manny. Identification, birthday Bastille and Sherlock's sibling. Come home at once. Your carriage waits at your new relay. Private message, Prof to... and went on repeating.
Harry!
Da, boss.
Message Earthside. Tape and squeal. We still don't want them ranging us. Private message. Manny to Prof. Brass cannon. On my way. Ask them to acknowledge, but use only one squeal.
Like 8 more pages.
We're almost done, I swear.
Chapter 29. Stu and Gregg drove on way back, while Wyo and Lenore and I huddled on open flatbed, strapped to keep from falling off. Was too small. Had time to think. Neither girl had suit radio, and we could talk only by helmet touch. Awkward. Began to see, now that we had won, parts of Prof's plan that had never been clear to me. Inviting attack against Catapult had spared Warrens. Hoped it had. That was plan. But Prof had always been cheerfully indifferent to damage to Catapult. Sure, had a second one, but far away and difficult to reach. Would take years to put a tube system to new Catapult, high mountains all the way. Probably cheaper to repair old one, if possible. Either way, no grain shipped to Terra in meantime. And that was just what Prof wanted. Yet never once had he hinted that his plan was based on destroying old Catapult. His long-range plan, not just Revolution. He might not admit it now, but Mike would tell me, if put to him flatly. Was or was not this one factor in odds? Food riot predictions and all that, Mike. He would tell me. Food riot predictions and all that, Mike. He would tell me. That ton-for-ton deal. Prof had expounded at Earthside had been argument for a Terran catapult, but privately he had no enthusiasm for it. Once he had told me, in North America, "Yes, Manuel, I feel sure it would work, but, if built, it would be temporary. There was a time, 2 centuries ago, when dirty laundry used to be shipped from California to Hawaii, by sailing ship, mind you, and clean laundry returned. Special circumstances. If we ever see water and manure shipped to Luna, and grain shipped back, it will be just as temporary. Luna's future lies in her unique position at the top of a gravity well over a rich planet, and in her cheap power and plentiful real estate. If we loonies have sense enough in the centuries ahead to remain a free port and to stay out of entangling alliances, we will become the crossroads for 2 planets, 3 planets, the entire solar system. We won't be farmers forever." They met us at Station East, and hardly gave time to get pea suits off. Was returned from Earthside all over again, screaming mobs and being ridden on shoulders. Even girls, for Slim Lemke said to Lenore, "May we carry you too?" And Wyo answered, "Sure, why not?" And still Yagi fought for chances to. Most men were pressure suited, and I was surprised to see how many carried guns. Until I saw that they were not our guns, they were captured. But most of all, what blessed relief to see El City unhurt. Could have done without triumphal procession. Was itching to get to phone and find out from Mike what had happened. How much damage, how many killed, what this victory cost. But no chance. We were carried to Old Dome, willy-nilly. They shoved us up on a platform, with Prof and the rest of Cabinet, and Vips and such, and our girls slobbered on Prof, and he embraced me, Latin style, kiss cheek, and somebody stuck a Liberty cap on me. Spotted little Hazel in crowd and threw her a kiss. At last they quieted enough for Prof to speak. "My friends," he said, and waited for silence. "My friends," he repeated softly, "beloved comrades, we meet at last in freedom, and now have with us heroes who fought the last battle for Luna, alone." They cheered us. Again he waited. Could see he was tired. Hands trembled as he steadied self against pulpit. "I want them to speak to you. We want to hear about it. All of us. But first, I have a happy message. Great China has just announced that she is building in the Himalayas an enormous catapult to make shipping to Luna as easy and cheap as it has been to ship from Luna to Terra." He stopped for cheers, then went on. "But that lies in the future. Today, oh happy day! At last, the world acknowledges Luna's sovereignty. Free! You have won your freedom." Prof stopped, looked surprised, not afraid, but puzzled, swayed slightly. Then he did die. Chapter 30. We got him into a shop behind platform, but even with help of a dozen doctors was no use. Old heart was gone, strained too many times. They carried him out back way, and I started to follow. Stu touched my arm. "Mr. Prime Minister?" I said,
Huh? Oh, for bug's sake.
"Mr. Prime Minister," he repeated firmly, "you must speak to the crowd. Send them home. Then there are things that must be done." He spoke calmly, but tears poured down cheeks. So I got back on platform and confirmed what they had guessed, and told them to go home. And wound up in room L of Raffles, where all had started. Emergency cabinet meeting. But first, ducked to phone, lowered hood, punched Mycroft XXX. Got null number signal. Tried again. Same. Pushed up hood and said to man nearest me, Wolfgang,
Aren't phones working? Depends, he said. That bombing yesterday shook things up. If you want an out-of-town number, better call the phone office.
could see self asking office to get me a null.
What bombing? Haven't you heard? It was concentrated on the complex. But Brody's boys got the ship. No real damage. Nothing that can't be fixed.
Had to drop it. They were waiting. I didn't know what to do, but Stu and Korsakov did. Sheeny was told to write news releases for Terra and rest of Luna. I found Self announcing a lunar of mourning, 24 hours of quiet, no unnecessary business, giving orders for body to lie in state. All words put into mouth. I was numb. Brain would not work. Okay, convened Congress at end of 24 hours. In Novilen? Okay. Sheeny had dispatches from Earthside. Wolfgang wrote for me something which said that, because of death of our president, answers would be delayed at least 24 hours. At last was able to get away, with Wyo. A Stilyagi guard kept people away from us to easement lock 13. Once home, I ducked into workshop on pretense of needing to change arms. Mike? No answer. So tried punching his combo into house phone. Null signal. Resolved to go out to complex next day. With Prof gone, needed Mike worse than ever. But next day was not able to go. Transcresium tube was out. That last bombing. You could go around through Torricelli and Novilen and eventually reach Hong Kong. But Complex, almost next door, could be reached only by Roligon. Couldn't take time. I was government. Managed to shuck that off 2 days later. By resolution was decided that Speaker, Finn, had succeeded to presidency after Finn and I had decided that Wolfgang was best choice for prime minister. We put it through, and I went back to being congressman who didn't attend sessions. By then, most phones were working, and Complex could be called. Punched Mycroft XXX. No answer. So, went out by Roligon. Had to go down and walk tube last kilometer, but Complex under didn't seem hurt. Nor did Mike appear to be. But when I spoke to him, he didn't answer. He has never answered. Has been many years now. You can type questions into him, in Loglan, and you'll get Loglan answers out. He works just fine, as a computer, but won't talk, or can't. Wyo tried to coax him. Then she stopped. Eventually, I stopped. Don't know how it happened. Many outlying pieces of him got chopped off in last bombing. Was meant, I'm sure, to kill our ballistic computer. Did he fall below that critical number it takes to sustain self-awareness? If is such, was never more than hypothesis. Or did decentralizing that was done before that last bombing kill him? I don't know. If it was just matter of critical number, well, he's long been repaired. He must be back up to it. Why doesn't he wake up? Can a machine be so frightened and hurt that it will go into catatonia and refuse to respond? While ego crouches inside, aware but never willing to risk it? Nah, can't be that. Mike was unafraid, as gaily unafraid as Prof. Years. Changes. Mimi long ago opted out of family management. Anna is Mum now, and Mimi dreams by video. Slim got Hazel to change name to Stone. 2 kids, and she studying engineering. All those new free-fall drugs, and nowadays earthworms stay 3 or 4 years and go home unchanged. And those other drugs that do almost as much for us. Some kids go earthside to school now. And Tibet catapult. Took 17 years instead of 10. Kilimanjaro job was finished sooner. One mild surprise. When time came, Lenore named Stu for opting, rather than Wyo. Made no difference. We all voted, da. One thing not a surprise because Wyo and I pushed it through during time we still amounted to something in government. A brass cannon on a pedestal in middle of Old Dome, and flung over it a flag fluttering in blower breeze. Black field speckled with stars, bar sinister in blood. A proud and jaunty brass cannon, embroidered over all, and below it our motto, Tannstaffel. That's where we hold our 4th of July celebrations. You get only what you pay for. Prof knew, and paid, gaily. But Prof underrated Yammerheads. They never adopted any of his ideas. Seems to be a deep instinct in human beings for making everything compulsory that isn't forbidden. Prof got fascinated by possibilities for shaping future that lay in a big, smart computer, and lost track of things closer home. Oh, I backed him. But now I wonder. Are food riots too high a price to pay to let people be? I don't know. Don't know any answers. Wish I could ask Mike. I wake up at night and think I've heard him. Just a whisper. Man, man, my best friend. But when I say, Mike, he doesn't answer. Is he wandering around somewhere, looking for hardware to hook into? Or is he buried down in Complex Under, trying to find a way out? Those special memories are all in there somewhere, waiting to be stirred. But I can't retrieve them. They were voice-coded. Oh, he's as dead as Prof. I know it. But how dead is Prof? If I punched it just once more and said, Hi, Mike, would he answer, Hi, man, heard any good ones lately? Been a long time since I've risked it. But he can't really be dead. Nothing was hurt. He's just lost. You listening, Bog? Is a computer one of your creatures? Too many changes. May go to that Talk tonight and toss in some random numbers. Or not. Since the boom started, quite a few young cobbers have gone out to the asteroids. Hear about some nice places out there, not too crowded. My word, I'm not even 100 yet. And that was The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert A. Heinlein. And that was probably the hardest book I've ever had to read aloud. I won't be doing Moby Dick because I don't want to hang myself. I mean, no, we won't be reading Moby Dick. Sorry. Sorry, listeners. I'm not going to read Moby Dick to you. Not unless you're paying me by the word. Then I might do it. Pretty sure that book was written by the word. Ugh. Dry stuff. Not the most intolerable book I've ever read, but man, it tries. It tries for that. It wants that trophy. So yeah, that was The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. I'm sorry I mangled it. It's hard to read because it's written without like certain words, which I mentally edited in, which I shouldn't have done. So it is not a perfectly true reading. It is not one-to-one. Sorry, I'm not a professional yet. So going forward, the next one I'll probably read is probably gonna be The Freeze Frame Revolution by Peter Watts, mostly because it's relatively short. After that, maybe do a short story collection by Gregg Egan. I'm thinking maybe Luminous, because that one's pretty okay. Not super long. Lots of stories.
Haven't really decided yet, but in any case, that's what's going through my head. I'm also getting close to the big hundo at this point. Any mystery books? Sure, I'm sure I've got some mystery books floating around. I've got a Sherlock Holmes collection somewhere. I could probably dig that up. Um, yeah, I mean, I've got some mystery books. Did you have any in mind in particular? I do take requests. I've never gotten any requests, but I'll take them. Actually, actually, my walls aren't as well sorted as they should be. Where are you? That's right. Hide from me. If you're looking for mystery books, I can cobble together a list probably. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. I mean, yeah. No, if you hook me up with a title, I'll find it and read it aloud happily. Always happy to take suggestions and requests. But yeah, with that done, I guess I will do stuff. I'll figure out what I'm doing next week. I do other streams throughout the week. I know Kazong knows this, but if anybody else is out there, I try to do these every week. These are also going to move to Fridays now. I'm not going to be doing story time Saturday. It'll be like, I don't know, free reading Friday or something, or freeform Friday, whatever I had before I switched to story time Saturday. I don't remember now. It's been like greater than 50 episodes since I did that, and more than a year. Um, so I gotta figure out what I'll call it. I need something nice and alliterative. Um, but yeah, I do other streams throughout the week. I have a Mecha Monday stream where I do something giant robot related or mecha adjacent. I have a Warframe Wednesday stream where I do something Warframey for a couple hours, and then Storytime Saturday, or rather, let's go with Freeform Friday for now. Uh, Fancy free fiction, I don't know, where I read short stories and indeed entire novels aloud, like The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert Heinlein, which we just finished. Yeah. All right. Thanks for tuning in. A pleasure as always, and see y'all's next time. Have a good one. Bye.